move on to 11A, which is Commission General Regulation 391, guided hunt changes. This is in reference to restricted non-resident deer tag draw. And so everybody knows kind of what we're going to do is after we cover this item, we'll have a break for lunch, and then we'll come back on the bear issue, which would be 11B, and that will probably hit it just before 2 o'clock. So if you wanted, if you're not interested in the next item, a few minutes till 2, we'll start on to the, providing this goes quickly on the, but at the soonest, it'll be a few minutes to 2. All right?
The soonest?
That would be the soonest. So we take a break, and that way they need to take a break, they can take a break. Now, let's go to Commission General Regulation 391. Commission may adopt a temporary regulation relating to revising provisions governing eligibility for the main draw if the application applied for the restricted non-resident deer tag draw. We've hammered over this on many occasions, and here we are. It was tabled. Here we are. Can you give us a brief synopsis, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. I'm Maureen Hullinger from Nevada Department of Wildlife. I represent the license office in the department and the application hunt program. I'm here to present for workshop today CGR 391 to go over the language to amend current permanent regulation. And as part of the support material, you have the regulatory language, and then I had a support paper going over each section and some background. I'm going to go over that paper right now. For the background, at the June Commission meeting, the Commission approved the Nevada Guides Association petition. The petition requested a change that would allow non-residents that apply for the restricted non-resident guided hunt draw, those unsuccessful or rejected in the ability to apply for the main draw for deer. This change would remove language that was added in 2006. At the August meeting, the language to reinstate the eligibility for the main draw was presented. Also at the August meeting, the department was directed to add language to the CGR that the bonus point earned in the restricted non-resident guided hunt draw would not be utilized in the main draw for that category of species, which is antlered deer. At the September Commission meeting, the department, I presented a brief report as to the status of that draft language. And then also in the background, I provided some information on the bonus point program. Current NIC does not allow a person to earn more than 1 bonus point in a year for a category of species, regardless of the number of applications. And then current program also allows a person that has earned a bonus point in a draw to utilize that bonus point in any subsequent draw for that category of species. So the language explanations in the CGR in section 1, this section amends the language by removing subsection 3. That's the language that restricted those non-resident guided hunt applicants from applying in the main draw, which was part of the original petition submitted by the Guides Association. Section 2 amends the language in the restricted non-resident guided hunt section of NAC. This language change restricts the utilization of the bonus point so that, that would not be used in the main draw. They'd go in with the same amount of points as they had in the guided draw. So, but it doesn't prohibit them from utilizing that point if there's remaining tags after the main draw. The programming for implementation is $500. We got an estimate from systems consultants if this workshop and this regulation change is approved tomorrow. So as for county advisory boards, the recommendations for language changes from the advisory boards, I had 4 advisory boards that supported the regulation change on the language, and they were Carson, Clark, Lincoln, and Washoe County. Now those are the recommendations that I had received. I know some of the county advisory boards had later meetings, and I didn't have those, and I'm sure they'll speak on their behalf. Eureka and Humboldt County opposed the regulation change, and I'll turn it back to the commission at this point for any questions on the language.
Any questions on the language? know we've hit this before on numerous occasions. Question?
Yeah, I just have a question. Do you know how many cabs did not? Did you say that? You said 4 did.
4 did. 2 that I got recommendations, language that was provided in time for me to tally it was Eureka and Humboldt opposed it.
Okay.
I know Lyon met and Douglas County met, but it was in Douglas County. They were supportive, but there was no motion listed. It was a supportive tone, so that would be, they could provide their comments at this time also.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment on this issue. And I was trying to find, there was in Eureka County, I was at their advisory board meeting and they had asked me to make a comment. I was trying to find the, on their behalf, just to repeat what they had said. And that was basically stating that the reason why this was originally changed had nothing to do with the Tallman lawsuit. They knew that there had been some thoughts of that it was strictly a fairness issue, is why the original change came out of the Eureka Advisory Board. And it's been repeated back to them, I guess, in several venues that, you know, it's all about the Tallman lawsuit. And they said, you know, please, on our behalf, state that it had nothing to do with that. It was strictly a fairness issue. And that was how that petition originally came about. So, who do we have? Go ahead, Mr. Sefton.
Don Sefton from Systems Consultants. I spoke with Chad Bliss the other day, and I would like to clarify a little bit remarks, which are in writing and I think are in your packet. He was quite upset, I think, felt that I may have attributed the negative non-resident feeling that I perceived at the commission meeting. I was not at your Wildlife Advisory Board meeting, and thought that his reason for bringing the petition forward was the reason that I put in, that I saw, or the feeling, the sentiment that I saw in the commission meeting. And that was not the case. In fact, until Chad called me, I didn't realize that he was even involved with it. And in fact, until about a month ago, I didn't realize that the instigation of the effort came from Eureka County Wildlife Advisory Board as a petition. I was here when it passed. I was at all of the commission meetings. And I can tell you in all honesty, I stand by the comments I made in the email, and that is that I believe that it was brought, I think Chad's an honorable guy, and if he says he did it for fairness reasons, and I believe he did, I don't believe that was how it was heard when it was heard here at the commission. It was decided in this room, and at the time there was a fair amount of anger towards the non-residents and the Tallman issue. There had been several meetings, some even in closed meetings, that the commission held to what can we do. And when that petition landed, it landed in fertile ground. And you know, it's like saying you want to get elected because you believe in change. Everybody wants change, and not everybody wants the same change, I guess, as we're finding out. But the reality is, when you say something is a fairness issue, everybody has, fairness is like beauty. Everybody has a different idea of what's fair. And you can push something forward and say, here's what I want to do, and this was because of fairness. But I can tell you, I sat in the back row, as I always do, and I heard a lot of grumbling, and, you know, how can these guys get 2 shots at applying, and we can't as residents, and now they want 25% of the tags as well because they're 25% of the applicants, and there was a fair amount of sentiment. I've talked to a number of the board members from that era, and they recall it similarly, that the reason behind, the reason, not that it was brought forward, but the reason why it fell in fertile ground was because there was this sentiment. And so that was not meant as any aspersion to Chad. I think he's an honorable guy, and you know, I think he and I agree to disagree on the issue, but and I realize I'm not in the majority, I'm well in the minority on this issue, and I've had a lot of phone calls about it, but I'm going to be honest and say I stick by what I said. So
No, fair enough. And, you know, and the reason why it was originally brought forward may very well not be the reason it was passed. That happens with multitudes of issues. It might have been brought forward because he had a headache, and it passed because the sky was blue. It's they didn't necessarily have to correlate. Okay.
I have a question.
A question?
Don?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think I may have
I
asked
thought I was
you-
going to get away.
No, not quite. I think I may have asked you this at either the last commission meeting. There was a spreadsheet that the chairman sent out to the commission that was forwarded. Okay, that's my point. Is that I think it's Chad's.
Yes.
Okay, Chad's spreadsheet as to the fiscal impacts to NDOW with respect to this issue, and I believe they were not in agreement with your. In other words, they were different than yours, and I was wondering if you've had any chance to look at those and further, explain your numbers versus their numbers.
I sent, George Corner asked me back in September to update numbers because there had been a concern that we were not on the same page. And people ask me about this, and I'm not sure which version of my numbers or which version of their numbers you're talking about. I've seen versions of their numbers that include tourism impacts and everything else, and I didn't begin to try and address those. So what I did at George's request is I recalculated numbers, and I included them in the email that I believe is part of your package. And I'm comfortable with those. I don't know if George is comfortable with those on behalf of the guides. And having watched the issue with trappers, I'm cognizant of the fact that, like, the AMA represents 30% of the doctors and the other 70% don't belong, and I think that may also be true with the guides, and there may be other guides here who aren't in agreement with you. At least Chad tells me that's the case. So anyway, I stand by the numbers that I sent. I think if you look at the impacts, there's several. One is the application fees of the number lesser applications. And Chad asked me also to point out that I can't prove that the lesser number of applications is based on the change in the rule. It happened the same year, and it's continued. But, as he points out, the economy's also been bad as well. I personally believe if you change the rule, the numbers will come back up, but we'll see. And that may also be the economy, because maybe the economy's turning around. But there was an impact in terms of application fees, if you consider the $10 a piece for those. There is an impact on the predator management fee of $3 per application. If you lose 700 applications, you lost $2,100. There is an impact minor, and I honestly don't think it's even worth talking about in the possible license sales, in the sense that most of those folks do come back and apply on other species, so I don't think you're really losing them. And there is also a difference in the tags, and there's a lot of confusion about the tags. I think the fairness issue, a lot of people thought that if those tags didn't go, that they were somehow going to land in resident hands. They don't. All they do is get shuffled between the non-resident quota in the non-resident guided draw and the non-resident quota in the main draw. The fiscal impact therein is that they're sold for $400 a piece in the non-resident guided draw. They're sold for $250 a piece in the main draw, so there's a $150 delta there. If you lose 30 tags, if you could argue that, that's $4,500. So I made some attempt to look at that. I looked at the number of years that we sold all 400, and it didn't happen every time, but most of the time it did, that we sold all 400. And I made an attempt to make a guess at that, and that was how I arrived at those numbers. And I think if you look at the total to the agency, it's somewhere, honest people could disagree, but it's somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 a year.
Okay, and so just as a follow-up, you did have discussions with Chad about the numbers then, and he kind of vetted his concerns with your numbers versus...
his concern, and he would like to have been here today, but he's got a new set of twins, and he couldn't make it. But his concern was that if something happens, I can point at the numbers, and I think nobody can dispute the fact that there are less applications now. We could all come up with a different reason as to why, and he says it may not be, and he thinks that it's not just because the rule changed. He thinks that the economy has played a role in it. My counter argument to that, which I did share with him, is that everything else went up. Didn't go up as much, but in spite of this economy, everything else went up. And so my belief is that the most significant factor in the drop off of those applications was the change in the rule. It happened at the same time, and it stayed there, and it hasn't really gone up much. And the only way to be able to prove that is if it changes again, So
I'll just make this final comment. I've while on the advisory board as well as on this commission, I've listened to you, and being a CPA, I'm a numbers guy, and I think you lend a lot of credibility to this process when you talk about numbers, and so I appreciate it.
Well, and Chad also asked, I guess, or pointed out that I say I don't have a dog in the fight. In all honesty, I don't care how the issue is resolved. I pointed out what I think are the facts in it. But he pointed out that if there were more applications, my company would get more money. Frankly, against a $750,000 or $800,000 contract, the couple of $1,000s we're talking about here, I wouldn't even be up here wasting your time or mine for that issue. It's not a material number for us, and I think it's not me to say. I don't think I should. I've tried every time we've been asked for our opinion about something not to say, well, let's do it because it would help me. I've tried just to say, I'm a hired gun, you guys tell me what to do, and I'll happily do it. And I told that to George Corner in my email to him, and hopefully that made it through in the packet as well, that it's not my decision to make, it is yours, and you can ask me for whatever numbers you want.
All right, thank you. Come on up. Oh, and then we'll start on the list. Go ahead, go first, and then we'll go down the list here.
Mike Turnipseed with the Douglas Cab, and I just want to clarify. Apparently, reading our minutes, I didn't bring it to a vote, and that's my fault because I'm the chairman. But it's been before our board several times. We support this 391 regulation change.
Thank you. What do we got?
We got Henry Krinka first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I'm president of the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association, and I feel that we have answered all of your questions in the past, and if you have any more, I would try to answer them, and I just ask for your support now, and I thank you for your support and time that you guys have put in on this.
I think we're the original petitioner. If there's any other questions, not.
Thank you.
We have. Thank you. Appreciate you coming up.
George Corner.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, for the record, George Corner representing the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association, and I wish some of the people that we were in discussion with before the previous issue had stayed here, because I can testify that this is a long process. And I would point out that a long process, but it's given us the opportunity to answer many questions and clear up many misconceptions and make our point. And I think that's come through when we have the support that we now have from the county advisory boards. It's taken a long time, a lot of trips around the state, and it's been an uphill process because, honestly, most of the people we were talking to had already had their minds made up. And when you're talking to people that have their minds made up, you have a hard time getting them to look at the facts. And it gave us more time to keep presenting the facts, and people were looking at them. And I want to thank everybody that's been involved, especially our previous speaker, Don Sefton. I was made aware of his conceptions of what had occurred, and I asked Don if I could get a letter from him pointing out that conception, and he has done that, and I think that took a great deal of courage, and we really appreciate it. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Go ahead, question.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you personally for coming down to the Clark County Advisory Board meeting this week and presenting the issue to us, to the County Advisory Board and to the public that was there as well as me. I think that's going well beyond, so I appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. You have any others? Okay. Go ahead, and then Candido, followed by
Jim Janay, Lyon County Game Board. I realize you don't have anything from us. We didn't get through with our meeting till 9:30 last night. But we are opposed to this, and basically not from the guide standpoint or anything else. We're opposed to it from a fairness standpoint. We feel that the residents, and of course our input comes from old-time Nevada residents, mostly in Lyon County. And they feel that they get one chance. They feel out-of-staters should get one chance at their original draw. So that's our reasoning behind it. And then we're here to represent them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Candido, then we got Mr. Casnelli.
Candido Mendy of Elko County Wildlife Advisory Board. For better or worse, we're about like them. We have our meetings on Wednesdays, so any problem we have in getting you the information, I hand-delivered it this morning, and you do have it there. Elko County supported it. And we also realize in these economic times that these numbers that are being thrown around, anything is a help for Nevada. And I've said this at the last meeting, and I'll say it again, we need to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Paul, next.
Tom Casanelli with the Humboldt County Board. I go back 22 years doing this, so I go back to the original bill and everything. And bottom line is, we give, it is a fairness issue. We give X amount of tags through the legislature to the guides. Those people applying for that already have a better percentage chance of drawing a tag than the general public. And I've been representing, and I don't care if they're non-resident or resident, the general public for all those years. And I really feel this is really shortchanging them. You're putting a guy in a draw that he's already got a better chance of drawing a tag, a deer tag, and you're allowing him in the second draw. You've already taken those tags out of the general quota. You've taken those tags out, and you've given him a better chance already. Now you're going to double dip on these general sportsmen, going to put them right back in and take the percentage down in the general sportsman's tag. It is really an unfair change, and that's the reason we went for this law, or changed this law in the first place, was the fairness issue. Humboldt County was behind it then, and we've stayed behind it ever since. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Mr. Dixon, and then see if there's anybody else.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County. In my haste to get the recommendation to you, I left this recommendation off. Through my oversight, I did tell Maureen, and I want to thank George for coming down and talking. The Clark County CAB supported the petition as stands, and I wanted to have that on the record since it's not in the written record that you have, but I'll be revising that recommendation and getting it back to you with that in it. Thank you.
Excellent. Sir?
I'm Walt Gardner. I'm representing myself, and I'm probably a little bit biased on this issue. I am a guide, and like it or not, it will help me. But everybody keeps bringing up the fairness issue, and I would like to point out a couple of things. Our clients are not eligible for the PIW tag. On the rubies, the last 2 years they've had 3 draws. Our clients are not eligible for those. The leftover tags in the archery draw go back and are reallocated for both the rifle and the muzzleloader in the rifle season. Three seasons are reallocated. So the residents and non-residents on the rubies have been allocated 3 draws the last 2 years. And then if you add in the PIW, that's 4 draws. Our clients are only eligible for 1. There's no clear-cut issue. I just want to point out that there is multiple draws in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for Walt.
Go ahead.
Mr. Gardner, back to the tags that are set aside for the guides, for the out-of-state hunters or anybody, I could be in that, or you have to be from out of state?
You must be a non-resident.
Non-resident, all right. But not every one of those people that put in for that gets it, do they?
No.
do they pay fees for that goes to the Nevada Department of Wildlife, predator fees and other things?
Yeah, and they pay $150 more per tag.
And every one of them that put in pays the predator fee and the application fee, even if they don't draw?
Correct.
And then the ones that don't draw then are eligible to go back in the general draw, and they also will pay, again, more fees?
If they were allowed to put into the general, yes.
Into the general draw.
Yes.
And it's a substantial amount of money.
They would be paying the application fee and the predator fee twice.
Do the people that come hunting with you, do they show up in old beat-up 1959 International pickups? Or do they have probably guns that you don't even know the names of?
There's some of both, but most of them are richer people.
Do they spend money in the state of Nevada that goes back into the Elko County and the gas station to the taxes?
Most of my clients will arrive in Elko the day before the hunt, spend the day there gambling, come out, go on their hunt, go back to Elko, lay up for a day, and then travel home.
Thank you.
Very good.
Any other questions?
I think we're good. We'll have Gil Yannick.
Thank you.
Public comment. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. Long road.
Gil Yannick, Carson Advisory Board. I want to thank George and I want to thank Don. We all been friends a long time, and originally I was on the other side of the fence on this issue, and so was my cab. Don and I agreed to disagree, but I think it was this last mailing that was sent out by the Guides Association that I really took and I read very carefully. And when we had our advisory board meeting this past Monday, I got up and I brought to everybody's attention a couple of very interesting facts that this whole thing is predicated on. Number one, we talk about the number of tags allocated to non-residents, a fixed number. If the resident guided hunt, if that person does not draw, doesn't change the number of tags that are allocated totally to non-residents. That's fixed. Just because a non-resident gets the opportunity, if he doesn't get it in the guided hunt, he can go back and apply for it in the non-resident hunt. We've already allocated those tags. Whether those tags are taken or not taken does not affect a single resident hunter in this state. The number of tags allocated to the resident hunters doesn't get affected one iota. The only thing that benefits is the department because of these additional fees that are going to be received, PIW, predator fees, all that gets paid all over again, still does not affect the total that was set aside for non-residents or the numbers that are set for the residents. The resident hunters kept complaining, it's not fair, they get 2 bites of the apple. But that's their apple, it's not ours. They're not affecting anything that we have to hunt for. And all of a sudden, when you count, I took a step back and I said, I was wrong. Don, thank you. George, thank you. And for just making the whole thing a lot, brought it down to the basic facts and made it very clear and simple to understand. We are not, with this change, we are not going to affect any resident hunter. All we're going to do is make have the opportunity to see some additional revenue for the department, which it so badly needs.
All right. Anybody else has spoke? Oh, question.
I got a question. Gil, do you think it's discriminatory against the non-residents who do not want to use a guide that only get to apply one time?
No. I mean, I don't see it that way, Commissioner
Why
Lynn.
would you see it that way?
We had set those tags aside for the guides originally. There was a number set aside that the guides were able to sell to their customers, right? And if their customer was not successful in the draw, we still had set aside that number of tags. So why shouldn't the person have the opportunity to now go into a non-resident draw, and if he chooses to go and hire a guide, he can do it. If I'm a resident and I get lucky enough to get a bull elk tag in a choice area, why can't I go after the same guide and want to hire him to guide me? Because this is my one big chance. So I don't think it's discriminatory. I don't think it's unfair. I think we have, when we set the quotas and allocate tags to each resident and non-resident group and guides, then that's fine. We've all agreed upon that. Just because we say you as a non-resident, you weren't successful through your guide, and we're going to let you draw again, these tags are allocated for non-residents. Residents are not affected. We don't get discriminated against. We don't lose anything. So what's wrong with that? I mean, I'm sure people can get up here and argue from their perspective that they think I'm wrong, and that's fine. But when we sat down and we just looked basically at, here's a pile for residents, here's a pile for non-residents, and just because those guys internally amongst the non-residents can fight it out and consume all those tags, it's better for us that they do. We get a lot more money, and we don't upset the balance between residents and non-residents at all.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
I worry about the money, because if we're worried about the money, why don't we auction off all the non-resident tags?
You're making more out of it than we need to, because that's not the issue here. We had set aside non-resident tags, a number of non-resident tags. Why don't we let them be sold one way or the other?
Thank you.
Further public comment? See, we already talked. Wait a minute. Anybody else? That's basically it, unless anybody. Okay. All right. So you already spoke. Make it brief.
I'll make it brief. Tom Casanelli with Humboldt County. Bottom line is fairness again. And I love Gil. I love all his ideas, but he's wrong on this one. If you want money, if you're going after the money, let's give the non-resident sportsmen 2 chances along with the, and then you'll get double the money from them. The general sportsman that's a non-resident, give him 2 chances at the main draw, just like the other guys have 2 chances, then it's fair again. Think of it that way. This is definitely a fairness issue. And I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the general sportsman, and the majority of the sportsmen that are out there are general sportsmen. Thank you.
Tom, I'd like to ask Tom a question.
All right, we have a question by Mr. Bogler.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
I still see, what's the minimum you can put in on a PIW tag? That gives me a second draw.
Yes, it does. But the non-sportsman has a chance at that too. He can apply.
Can the out-of-state resident, is he in on it, on the PIWs too?
Not the guided.
Not the guided.
You're talking the elk. The deer tags, non-resident, the deer tag, PIW tag can be sold to anybody, no matter if he's guided or not guided.
No, but if I want 2 draws, I could, if I leave the money in, I qualify for PIW, don't I?
You can have a tag. You can have a tag, and you can buy 5 or 6 PIWs. The PIW is a completely separate issue.
No.
Okay. I think
you can't have more than one tag.
We'll have Maureen. All right, I think we're done with the question. We'll have Maureen clarify the law, and then we'll see if there's any further public comment.
You're right.
All right. I think we're good there. Maureen, can you clarify the regulation for us? Thank you, Tom.
Partnership in Wildlife, PIW, is a subsequent draw that occurs during the main draw if the person opts to participate. The restricted non-resident guided hunt draw occurs in March, and the current regulation disallows those unsuccessful and rejected applicants from being able to apply in the main draw. As a result, they don't have an opportunity for the non-resident partnership in wildlife tags. So I think that's answering the question.
Is everybody clear on the legalities of the issue or the regulation? All right. No further public comment. Seeing none, bring this back to the commission. This is informational today, but if there's anything in the language that you would like to see changed for tomorrow, now would be the time to bring that up. Is there any or alternatives to the language for tomorrow? It's basically, if we leave it like, if we don't suggest any recommendations today, then it'll be yes or no vote. But if you want some alternatives, anybody want to discuss that?
I think
Mr.
I
Howell?
still got a question for Maureen. I didn't quite hear it. A non-resident in the non-resident draw, not the guide draw, but the non-resident draw, he can apply for a PIW, right?
Correct. Yes,
So
if he opts to, yes, because there's
So
3 tags available
he's got,
usually.
2 chances then.
If they apply in the main draw as a non-resident for deer, they can opt to participate in partnership and wildlife.
Right.
But if they've applied in the guided, the way the regulation reads right now, they're excluded from the main draw, so then they don't.
I understand that. Okay, now, if we change this back to what it was, then the guy that misses out in the guided draw, non-resident, misses out in the guided draw, can apply, and he can then apply in the main non-resident draw, and also buy a PIW there, also.
He could opt to participate if he so chooses, yes.
3 chances then.
PIW is a separate quota, though.
Well, I understand, but it'd still be 3 chances.
3 chances in that aspect. In Silver State, 4 chances, and the new, whatever comes after that, 5. Anyways, okay, here we are.
I got a question, Maureen. Could we make it, what would we have to do with the guided non-resident if they were unsuccessful and they did not get into a second draw? What would we have to do to make the unsuccessful original guided non-resident, could they go into a PI in the non-resident PIW? But they're filled out, aren't they, every year? The
You have
quota?
to, for the partnership and wildlife, the way the current programming is established is you have to have the application in the main draw to be eligible in opt to, then mark the box. You know,
But
in
couldn't
the
we do
program.
that with the guided non-resident? Put them in a PIW?
If you change the timing of the
You
draw to
mean
the
have
main draw.
Possibly have a box at the guided hunt, and that would just roll forward into the main draw as an application.
Right.
You know, as Don Sefton has said, if anything could be programmed, you know, if we get the language right and the description's clear enough for the boundaries, I mean, anything's possible, I guess, there would be a cost associated with that programming.
Yeah, we got money left in it anyway.
All right, further comments about this issue? Tomorrow's voting, today's the, yes.
I suppose I have another little problem with this. The only reason for the fact that the guided draw is drawn early is to make this other option available, right? Otherwise, you could have it at the same time as the main draw.
When the guided draw was established, that was the purpose of having it so early, because at that time it was authorized that they could apply in the main draw. So that's why we had to hold it earlier, so that they could get their results in time to come back or choose to come back and apply in the main draw if they so choose. So that's why the calendar is laid out the way it is currently, and has stayed that way.
Mr. Chairman, could I make
So if we leave it the way it is, we could have it at the same time as the main draw then.
I'd have to look at it, and to give a definitive answer, I'd have to think about it and look at it. There is potential.
Okay. Mr. Vogler.
Mr. Howell, I'm not trying to broaden the conversation, but one of the reasons I believe that they have the draw for the guides early is people that are planning for a guided hunt a lot of times have to set everything up very far in advance. I know this is a real bone of contention with the landowner tags, because those guys that have those kind of disposable incomes for those tags want things set up early, and I think that was one of the reasons, wasn't it, that you had the earlier draw for that, for the guides to help set that up? You know, I mean, would you go to Florida to hunt alligators without a guide? I mean, I don't, but there might be 5 guys in Nevada that would know how to do that. But all these guys that are putting in from out of state, most of them are going to go with a guide. And so when you're not taking it away from the residents, and this is just whirling around with the guides, to me it seems like it's revenue for the counties, it's revenues for the states. In 1956, there were 32,000 deer tags issued in Elko County, and 7,000 of those were for non-residents. We could solve a lot of issues if we could bring our deer herds back.
All right.
Anyhow,
Mr. McBeth.
The comments were made with regard to the fiscal impacts of this, and I just want to remind everybody that coming up in this next legislature, the state of Nevada is going to be dealing with, I've heard different estimates, you know, $2 to $3 billion shortfalls, and some of the things I've heard are that we are going to be looking at losing our general funding, totally. So I fully understand the fairness issue. I understand that the normal Joe, non-resident hunter who can't afford a guide is going to have reduced odds, probably very minuscule, but they all will be reduced odds in the non-resident draw. But I think we need to really think about, you know, walking away from these dollars, because I have a feeling we're going to be scraping to find every dollar we can, and so that is, you know, in weighing which way I'm going to go, that is that piece of it is something I'm really looking at, and related to that is the additional economic impact it has on Elko County and other counties where guides are impacted financially as well. So, anyway.
Fair enough. All right, you know, I think we've heard good arguments on both sides of this, and they're both, I mean, it's one of these divisive issues, but I don't think it's the most divisive issue in the world, and whatever's decided, come back in a few years and you can change it back to the other way. So, because it's that, it'll be that close. You know, and there are some good legitimate arguments, the fairness issue, and then the other side of, well, it wasn't meant to be fair. That was actually the best argument I heard from the Guide Association. It wasn't designed to be fair to begin with. I mean, it's a law to help them out, to help us out. So you've got two very good arguments. Whichever way it goes, come back the other way, and yeah, we'll switch every 4 or 5 years of regulation. Okay, it's anything else? Seeing none, we're going to have a lunch and then. Huh?
11B.
And then we'll hit on to 11B right immediately thereafter. Yeah, we'll do 11B while nobody's here and we told them. Now that would be popular. No, maybe not. When are you going to read 2? 2. What? 2 o'clock. Back at 2, we got lunches here for commission.